Yeah, it's beautiful, Steve. It's beautiful.
You told me I got a rogue curl.
I did.
Can't have that here.
I did that during the countdown specifically to set your head, get you in a...
Stop messing with me. We're
in
live now. Stop.
a tizzy.
Stop. We're live. We're live. Hey, welcome in. PFF NFL show. It is your YouTube-only edition.
Yes.
YouTube only.
It is.
That's right.
You're very loud.
Yeah, turn it down a little bit.
I have.
You
I've turned
control your
myself
own
down.
volume.
I know.
You're in control.
I got it.
You guys control your own volume too, but keep it up. We got some important things to say here. Midweek show. We got the Stephenson Award update. We've got Mailbag, which, by the way, I haven't seen any of the questions.
No, I know.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
I like to have the questions so I could prepare a little bit and be ready to go.
I know, but here's the thing, right? Sometimes in the morning you kind of annoy me, and the more you annoy me, the more I'm going to make your life miserable by preventing you from seeing the questions before we address them.
How is it annoying just asking for the questions that we're going
wasn't
to answer?
annoying.
So
the first time wasn't annoying, right? I just hadn't gotten around to it yet. The third and fourth times were annoying. So at that point, it's like, you know what? You're not going to see the questions.
Well, maybe you should be prepared.
I am prepared. You're not prepared because I've prevented you from seeing the questions.
Part of your preparation is preparing me.
I don't have that kind of, time and effort.
All right. Anyway, as I said, this is a special bonus show. It's no longer going to be on the podcast feed.
Correct.
So you're only watching us on YouTube. We're live from our home of Cincinnati.
Yeah.
PFF home.
So there's a chat box. We're live. We kept the live aspect because that's kind of fun, right? So there is a chat box going on in the YouTube video, in the section, whatever. There's a chat box there. If you have questions to ask us there, drop them as well.
All right. So maybe that's very interactive then.
That's what I'm saying.
We're people of the people.
We're live. We're interactive. We're in the studio. We're answering questions. And we're telling you who's leading the way in the Stevenson charge.
All right, let's start with the Stephenson Award then. Of course, it is PFF's #1 award. It is for the best player in the NFL, regardless of position, besides special teamers and fullbacks. So, again, not MVP. This was our answer to MVP. We do a weekly update. So where are we, Sam, as far as the Stephenson Award, our highest graded players in the NFL right now?
Okay, so the #1 graded player in all of football, if you, limit the sample size to a sensible number, George Kittle.
It is George Kittle.
Kittle.
Well, he sat out last week. He's just sitting on his grade.
Kind of crazy.
On a bye.
I know, but that's the way you do these things, right? You dominate for a while and then sit tight before anybody can wreck you.
Yeah, we factor snap count in there, so you can't completely sit on it.
Right. Chris Godwin had a crazy game, caught himself an absolute world of first downs in that beatdown of the Los Angeles Rams.
The
Chris
beneficiary of that downfield passing attack.
Was an absolute monster. Carson Wentz has shifted his way all the way to the front of the pack when it comes to quarterbacks.
So I wrote up Carson Wentz. It's on PFF.com today. It'll be there. I got to give you a number that we try to use all the time here to explain things. He's got 5 big-time throws that have fallen incomplete. The rest of the NFL has 24.
Wow.
Okay. So he has like 20% of the league's big-time throws that have fallen incomplete, meaning he made a great throw, somebody dropped it. If you just give him those 5 passes, he goes from something like 19th in passer rating to 8th just off 5 passes alone.
Right.
And I know you can't do, but just an example.
I mean, even if you just look at touchdowns, right? He's got 9, which is 1 shy of the league lead.
And 2 of those big-time throws should have been touchdowns.
Exactly, right? You can immediately think, even if you just limit yourself to end of the game that should have won the game, there's at least 2 touchdowns that should be on his record. There's a ball that landed in Dallas Goedert's hands, would have won that game. That's 10.
Aguilar lost in the lights.
Right, down the sideline. Aguilar catches that one, runs down the line. That's 11. That would put him in the lead. That's just 2 throws that should have won games that would immediately catapult him not just to the top of the Stephenson Award, but would have him back in the MVP conversation as well.
Right. If
you countenance such idiocy, which of course I don't.
We don't do that. So PFF.com, I got a full breakdown on how well Carson Wentz is playing. The other thing, he has 6.6 yards per attempt. That's a pretty pedestrian number. Just those 5 passes, if they're caught and the expected outcome happens, he goes to 8. 6.6 to 8 off of 5 throws. So we're still in small sample size world. Quarterback's also this weird dynamic where I think there's really not been any dominant performances.
So that's going to get you a lot of hate.
I mean, like we mentioned Patrick Mahomes last week about how he hasn't played exactly as well as the stats. Brady was #1 coming into the week. He was terrible last week against the Bills. I mean, there's just been a lot. Phillip Rivers has played well, but he's had some disastrous late-game decisions in there, too. There just hasn't been dominant a 4-game stretch for quarterbacks.
Okay.
What about defensively? We're starting to see
Khalil Mack back to being
The right
a
name.
wrecking machine.
Yeah.
Absolutely dominant. And this week, he gets to play the Raiders.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Uh-huh.
Over in London.
And he's like already talking it up this week as in like, oh, yeah, I'm up for this one.
I'm ready.
Ready yourselves. The
3
Raiders.
forced fumbles for Khalil Mack.
The Raiders are still playing Colton Miller.
Yeah.
Khalil Mack versus Colton Miller. Oh,
Could be ugly.
yeah.
Derek Carr's going to be getting the ball out even quicker.
Well, he's going to need to. Otherwise, he's going to die. 91.8 overall grade for Khalil Mack. That's, dominant pretty much. The next defensive guy, I think, Devin McCourty. Obviously, the interceptions are the thing that everyone will be aware of. 4 interceptions in 4 games. But the guy's consistently playing amongst the best safety play in the NFL every single year and remains right up at the sharp end again.
Yeah, and he's usually that safety that we say, he's just a guy who's always in position, doesn't make a ton of plays, but just doesn't have a lot of bad plays. And this year he's got
Now
4
he's
picks in
making
4
some plays.
games.
Yeah.
And Shaquille Barrett, he's got we have him with 9 sacks. I don't know what the NFL has him with, but yeah, so he's one of those guys we always like to say, hey, the sack totals aren't always real. Like, those are real sack totals for Shaquille Barrett. He is really dominating up front for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, he's going to make – him and Khalil Mack will make up the edge rusher component of our first quarter All-Pro team when that goes live later today, I think.
PFF.com.
Yes, PFF.com, where you can read all about it, as they say, back in the 1920s when they're talking about newspapers.
Do we have some elite subscriptions coming in and to push you toward singing?
So we required proof of purchase elite sales, and I have yet to have any come in. At least they haven't been relayed
Right, we've
to
still
me.
had a lot of elite sales, but
Right.
we need proof of purchase.
If anybody has emailed podcasts@pff.com with their proof of purchase of a sale to drive me towards singing again, I have yet to have those relayed in my direction. Now, that doesn't mean they haven't come in.
Where do they email them?
Podcasts@pff.com.
Get on that so we can get Sam to sing again.
Yeah.
My dad was impressed with your singing, by the
Oh,
way.
yeah?
Yeah.
Look, I don't think I gave a fair account of my abilities, right? I think there were issues with the music in my ear. We did a sound check, right? The way you see at concerts, sound check earlier in the day, make sure everything's good. And we did the sound check. Only when you're doing the sound check, it's just like, can you hear this music in your ear? To which the answer is yes. Yes, I can. That's fine. But when you have to sing, suddenly your own voice in your head is drowning out the thing in your ear.
Yeah, you're inexperienced.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was completely out of timing. My singing did not bear any resemblance to the music that was accompanying me, which was a problem, right? What I needed was to crank that volume right up, and then I could have had some timing and rhythm along with the whole
So there's
thing.
room for improvement.
Yes. Plus, as much as the Irish Rover's a great song, I don't think it really lends itself to my particular, vocal skills.
Really.
So I think we need to find a more suited song for me to.
You're really
sing
owning
next
this.
time.
Like, you want to improve, get better, and
Well, no, I'm giving
give the people.
excuses for the problems that were last time, and I think
that's fair.
there's more room.
All right, let's round out the Stephenson Award. O-lineman, do they get some love? Lyle Collins,
Lyle Collins playing well.
87.4 grade. He's our number 1 graded offensive lineman. He had that one really dominant game against the New York Giants, but he's also only given up 3 pressures all season. Fellow right tackle Mitchell Schwartz is up there as well with an 84 grade, so got to give the O-lineman some love.
Okay, well done.
Anyone else in the mix here?
I think those are the clear favorites at the moment, so I think that's a good list to go with.
All right, so there you go. It's your Stephenson Award update. We're a quarter of the way through the season, so there you go. 4 weeks in.
I like it. So, big question. We got one well thought out, monstrous, large question that I think is worth spending some time on.
And a bunch of bad questions?
I'm not saying that. It came from somebody whose name I believe is Stephen Dudas, D-U-D-A-S. I don't know if that's not how you pronounce it. Blame Shannon Ford in the other room because she claimed it was.
Mm-hmm.
His question is, I feel that coverage gets less coverage than it deserves, probably because most of the work happens off screen. Going through the grades, here are some players I would love to hear you guys discuss. So he's broken them down into categories. Whoa, playing insane, guys. Justin Coleman, Micah Hyde, Marcus Williams, Devin McCourty. Better than expected, Dante Jackson, James Bradbury, Kevin King, Shaquille Griffin, Steven Nelson, Jabril Peppers, Eli Apple. Good to see playing well, Marcus Peters, Byron Murphy, Levi Wallace, Malik Hooker, Darnell Savage, and what's going on? Jalen Ramsey, Aqib Talib, Desmond King, William Jackson, Juwan Thornhill, Amani Hooker, and John Johnson. Obviously, you guys want to have takes on all these guys, which is fine, but pick your favorite, essentially.
All right, so let's start by saying we trust a lot of what our analytics guys are saying when it comes to numbers, and some of the best stuff that they do is say, okay, look, these grades are really good, but which positions can you bank on year to year, right? Mostly because of the volatility at the position, right?
Mm-hmm.
So our pass rush grades are very consistent. O-line grades, believe it or not, are very consistent. Hear that? Hashtag O-line community. Hashtag O-line Twitter. Very consistent O-line grades.
Hashtag strike, drive, leverage, finish, or whatever the hell it is.
You have to add Duke if you use that.
How do I add him on a podcast?
I don't know, just say at Duke Manyweather.
Okay, at Duke Manyweather.
Our QB grades are extremely consistent. Our coverage grades can fluctuate a little bit, and it's mostly because you're really talking about a guy has 1,000 snaps, 400 or 500 maybe are in coverage, and they're only targeted 60, 70, 80, 100 times. And, the numbers always say, look, the offense can often dictate what the coverage unit looks like.
Yeah.
Or how well the coverage players are playing. So I think that's why starting at the bottom of the list, your Aqib Talibs of the world and some of those other guys that were maybe underperforming. Jalen Ramsey, in a season, it really is a small sample size. And when you get into a quarter of the season, it's an even smaller sample size and very dependent on who you're playing and really just a couple plays here and there.
I think more than almost any other position, coverage is dependent on what you're going up against, right?
Yeah.
Because, it's an old adage, even just on broadcast, that the perfect pass beats the perfect coverage. And it's true. You can, most of the time, the best you can do is be in really tight coverage and make life extremely difficult for the quarterback and wide receiver, right? But ultimately, if they put the ball in the right place, it's going to be a catch anyway, even if you're draped all over the guy.
Right.
Now, there are examples where you can make a play on the ball and break it up, but by and large, most of your plays, that's the best you can achieve. Whereas, if you think about any other sort of what you're asked to do, any other positions in the NFL, it's less so. As a pass rusher, by and large, if you execute your role to the best of your ability, you beat the guy in front of you, you get pressure, and that's good, right? Same with a pass blocker. If you do the best thing you can do, you shut down the guy coming opposite you, you win, right? Coverage is just one of those things where I think more than any other position, it is, even if you do your job really, really well, the guys going up against you can still get passes in, at which point the result is worse than potentially you've done from a sort of technical and technique point of view.
And from a grading standpoint, of course, we say, look, if you're in tight coverage, that's a better job than getting torched and all that stuff, and the grading will factor that in. When you mention the safeties, though, like a Micah Hyde, a Devin McCourty, we just talked about Devin McCourty as far as the Stephenson Award goes. If the safety is in good position over and over and over again, I think that sometimes what you need is a Josh Allen to fire passes your way.
Yes.
Right? I mean, so a lot of, that's why interception totals can fluctuate a ton as well, much like coverage grades.
Huge.
Because it's dependent on the quarterback making a bad decision.
Yeah.
Throwing at a single high safety when he's not supposed to. And Devin McCourty has faced Luke Falk, Josh Rosen / Ryan Fitzpatrick, a bad Ben Roethlisberger throwing one up in garbage time. Last week, Josh Allen. So there's some dependency on those poor quarterback
we
decisions.
talked before about, the idea of the cover 3 play. You're not supposed to throw the posts.
Yeah, that was Matt Ryan last Sunday. Yeah.
So the difference between that safety and any other safety on any given play is just Matt Ryan randomly has a twitch and decides, I'm going to make this throw anyway. Yep. Like suddenly the safety makes himself a play. So that differentiates him from any other safety who was in exactly the same alignment pre-snap and post-snap, is whether the quarterback just decides, I got a feeling about this one, and puts the ball in the air. Safeties in particular are massively dependent on just the decisions the quarterback makes, and even cornerbacks as well.
Justin Coleman, the slot corner for the Detroit Lions, not a huge surprise for us. I mean, he's coming off of 2 pretty good years in Seattle, 76th grade and a 75 grade with regard to coverage the last 2 years. He's playing better than that this year, up around 84. He's doing a great job, first off, just flying around the field, but he's one of those guys that's, playing through the ball a lot. I think we talked about the Lions punching the ball out the other day. Coleman had the pass that saved the touchdown. He's just doing a good job getting his hands on the ball. He's got 5 pass breakups. That's second in the NFL so far. So he's working on his 3rd straight year of just really strong slot corner play. And I think, slot corners are underrated commodities in today's NFL.
From the second category, the guy I would like to talk about is James Bradbury. So Bradbury as a rookie looked really impressive, right? He was making some plays as a rookie that weren't just so. Again, everybody likes to look at man-to-man coverage, but what I think really differentiates some of these guys is the instincts and knowledge they show of zones and when to split guys, when to come off your guy, when to adjust what you're doing according to the thing that is presented to you by the offense. And he made some plays as a rookie that you really don't see very often from young players in terms of understanding, peeling off your guy, heading towards somebody else, and making a play on a ball that you probably shouldn't be there with. And then he just died off completely. Took massive steps back, was playing badly the last couple of years. And then now we're back to James Bradbury. Actually, this is the highest grade of his career. It's higher than that rookie season and a massive jump from what we've seen over the past few seasons.
Is he the poster boy then for this whole idea that coverage fluctuates a little bit? So basically, if you have a 2 or 3 year sample size on a coverage player, is going to work a lot stronger than a 1 year sample. And you can see Bradbury going up and down year over year, I think just sums that up.
But some of the numbers are impressive, right? So his career completion percentage allowed is 57%. This season, he's at 41. Career passer rating allowed is at 85.5. This year, 35, which is 35.
That's lower than just throwing the ball into the dirt every single time.
Go.
That's 39.
There you go.
When you do that.
So, Bradbury, he's definitely in that category of better than expected this year.
What other guys, since you didn't give me the list?
In the better than expected?
I don't know. Just give me some other interesting names. I'll tell you which ones I find most interesting.
I literally read this.
I don't remember you read like 25 names. How am I supposed to remember all of them and not have the list in front of me?
Better than expected is Dante Jackson, James Bradbury, Kevin King, Shaquille Griffin, Steven Nelson, Jabril Peppers, Eli Apple. That list brought to you by Michael Ryan.
Kevin King's been really interesting.
Yeah. He's
played tight man coverage against some bigger receivers. When he was coming out of Washington, remember 6'3" with a ridiculous 3-cone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think corner is one of those positions. I think the athletic testing at the combine tells a story. It's not as simple as, hey, this guy runs 4.3, he'll be good. But when they have a good 3-cone, you're like, all right, this guy can probably do some things in man coverage and all. And when you see a guy his size moving as efficiently as he did at the combine, plus he had a bunch of spectacular interceptions on film. He had some ugly plays on film too at Washington. But we said he's kind of like poor man Xavier Howard, right, with some high end and low end type of play, and I think he's just on the higher end right now, especially when he's been matched up against those bigger receivers.
Yeah, I liked Kevin King a lot coming out. I thought stylistically he reminded me a lot of Richard Sherman in terms of that long, sort of slightly gangly, appearance and gait. Obviously, was never as good as Richard Sherman was, particularly at that time where that was like Richard Sherman's heyday.
Right,
he was probably the best cornerback in the NFL, but he had that kind of style and playing fashion and would kind of make some of those plays every now and again, a little bit like Xavier Howard, where the high-end stuff looked like Richard Sherman, and then there was a lot more low-end stuff. But, yeah, he's kind of looks like he's turned a corner maybe. What about good to see playing well? Marcus Peters, Byron Murphy, Levi Wallace, Malik Hooker, Darnell Savage.
Malik Hooker, Darnell Savage. Yeah, so you got some rookies in there. Malik Hooker, I'm sorry.
Not a rookie.
No, I was thinking of Monty Hooker for a second. It's tough when you're just listing them. Malik Hooker, yes, he had that crazy one-handed interception.
One of the best plays you'll ever see.
Yeah.
It was absurd.
Yeah, and so Malik Hooker coming out, that week one, remember, it summed up Malik Hooker. Here's a one-handed great interception, then a whiff, missed tackle in the open field. I think the analysis on him was like, when you see a free safety make a special free safety play, it's like, okay, he can do it. That's one of those positions where it's like, can you do it or can you not?
Right.
And then it's like this Devin McCourty thing. How many opportunities do you have in a given year? So Malik Hooker is going to have years where he's got like 8 picks because he has more opportunities to just be special free safety or half field safety or whatever. And then some other years where he just doesn't have as many opportunities. But that big playability coming out of Ohio State, really impressive.
He has legitimate ball hawk skills that a lot of players don't have.
Yeah.
The most interesting name on that list to me is Levi Wallace. We were talking before the season about how we really hope this guy kept his starting gig. They brought over Kevin Johnson, who sucks. And there was a scare, at least to me, that you're going to take a guy like Levi Wallace, who played really well as a rookie, unexpected sort of surprise on that roster, and it's like, well, we don't trust him yet. Let's bring in the old veteran, give him a shot, even though we know he's bad, and dump Levi Wallace. But it hasn't happened. He's maintained his sort of starting position. And he's playing well again. So not quite as well as he did a season ago, but again, grading well. 71.7 coverage grade, overall 66.9. Those numbers are both sort of firmly in the green in our grading scale. He's such a great story because this guy, he was like playing intramural flag football like 4 years ago. At Alabama.
At Alabama,
decided I'm okay with this. I might give it a shot. Walks on at Alabama, right?
Right. Amongst all 4 and 5 star
right.
recruits.
Powerhouse national champion level roster every single year. I'm going to try walking on at Alabama. Ends up starting for them. Lightweight, 6 foot, 180 pounds ish. So it's like, well, this guy is probably too small to do it at the NFL level. I don't know if that's going to work. Ends up getting on there. Did he go undrafted or is he bought it? No, he did go undrafted. Still ends up sticking on the roster. Not just sticking on the roster, but starting games late in the season when they had some injuries and that kind of stuff. Plays ridiculously well and then earns a starting job. So in like 4 years goes from intramural flag football to starter in one of the better coverage units in the NFL. That's
the Bills.
Insane.
Bills as a unit, the number 2 coverage team in the NFL, right behind the Patriots. And they have done a good job of taking guys like Levi Wallace, who maybe shouldn't be great, fitting them into the scheme and doing a really nice job there.
For his career now, he's been on the field for 678 snaps and given up just 2 touchdowns. Like there are players this season that have given up 2 touchdowns in a game.
Do you want to hear some other crazy stats?
Sure.
For a coverage player?
Yeah.
So my wife's stepmother's cousin's daughter's husband is Doug Kyde.
You have a greater ability to do that than maybe anybody else I've ever encountered. Your ability to string together, like 6 shades of separation, is amazing to me.
This is like 2.
How is that 2? That thing went on for like 2. Like the sentence was this long. There's no way that's 2 stages of separation.
Cousin's daughter's husband.
That's 5.
Is Doug Kyde.
Right.
But there's 1 degree of separation because Doug and I are friends. We're on Twitter together. He's a Patriots beat writer.
I'm just saying, I don't know anybody that's able to string together those degrees of separation the way you are.
That is a fun game. You guys started just like naming guys, and I found a way to.
Yeah, who did you connect Gordon to?
Like Jack Del Rio or something like that. I think I don't know. It was like the most random name. I'm like, I've got.
Those are your 2.
Luke Del Rio follows me on Twitter, and that's Jack's son.
Those are your 2 greatest assets, right? It's the ability to string together 6 degrees of separation off the top of your head, and your ability to work out percentages on the fly. Those are the 2 things you're best at in the entire world.
Yeah, we both.
I don't know.
Everybody has their strengths.
I don't know there's a use for either of them.
Our boss, Neil, likes to say you got to play to everybody's strengths. So, Neil, it's on you. Figure that out.
Right. Find a role
How
for
do you use
Steve that involves percentages out of fractions and degrees of separation.
Anyway, Doug Kyde, cousin Doug, texted me the other night, and I'm assuming he's going to write it, somewhere on Nesson.com, where he's a beat writer for the Patriots.
But he scoop him?
No, I'm just trying to.
Okay.
I'm actually go to Nesson.com and read Doug Kyde's stuff. How's that?
Okay, good.
Cousin Doug.
What do we got?
So he asked for J.C. Jackson's deep pass numbers in his career. You ready for this?
Yes.
When targeted on 20-plus yard throws, J.C. Jackson has given up 2 catches on 19 targets. Wow. Over the last 2 years, both of which have gone for first downs, obviously. But he also has 4 interceptions on those 19 targets, and he's forced a total of 8 incompletions. That includes those.
Those are Richard Sherman numbers. Yeah. You remember where he went on a run where it was like you basically cannot complete a deep pass on Richard Sherman.
Yeah, that's what J.C. Jackson looks like right now. That's a passer rating of essentially 0.
4.
I'm sorry, we don't have the total, but it's 0 this year, 0 for 3, and 0.8 last year, 2 for 16. So that's J.C. Jackson's career.
All right, I like it. Those are good numbers. The last category in this, which we'll do quickly, is what's going on. Jalen Ramsey, Aqib Talib, Desmond King, William Jackson, Thornhill, Amani Hooker, and John Johnson. Which is your favorite?
Thornhill and Amani Hooker, those are the 2 rookies.
Yeah.
Again, I think with those high-end corners, it's a lot of, Talib just went up against this explosive Tampa Bay offense. It's just a lot of who you're going up against sometimes. And I expect those guys to revert back to the mean and be much better.
Okay. All right. Somebody in our chat room here. That sounds kind of weird.
I haven't checked that.
Our YouTube
This
chat
is like
box.
1998 AOL.
Chat box. Chat room is different. Chat box. Talk to us about Rashawn Gary, because a player obviously we were not in love with coming out of the draft. Never really produced at the level that his athleticism would suggest he should. Through 4 games, things have not been going tremendously well. Overall grade of 51.9, 5 total pressures on 39 pass rushing snaps. So what's the deal, Steve?
So I think most rookies are going to pretty much look a lot like they did in college. There are always exceptions. Dak Prescott exceeded expectations. Daniel Jones may have exceeded expectations.
Though not last week.
It's still early. So there's always guys that buck the trend. But if there was going to be success for Rashawn Gary in the future, it would be based off those physical tools matching technique and just the ability to win more consistently on the field. So if he didn't win consistently on the field in the Big Ten last year with those tools,
right,
it's a big ask to say, as a rookie, go ahead and win with those tools. Now, in theory, you get him if the right D-line coach connects with him and we're talking 2 or 3 years down the road and he becomes a pretty productive player, or they find a role where it's like rushing from the interior versus the edge, they just find the right role for him, maybe you've got some success there. But I think it's a big ask to take a guy with great athleticism, just a low percentage of just winning at the college level and expecting it as a rookie. So I think those numbers that you put out there are about expected. And then you compare him to like Chase Winovich, who did win at a high level. He's got like a 65 grade for us, which is good to above average.
Yeah.
But, you know, Winovich was way more productive in college. So that like the difference between those guys is similar, but obviously it's the NFL and they're rookies, so it's not going to be off the charts spectacular, even for Winovich.
So Winovich is grading better. They interestingly have the same amount of total pressures, but Winovich has been doing it at a better. He's been the quality of those pressures is better for Winovich. So he's been winning earlier, more decisively, getting that kind of pressure. The other interesting thing for Winovich is like the Patriots have never been the most edge rusher pressure friendly team in the world. So, you know, he's kind of doing it in a scheme that may not be maximizing his ability to get after the passer.
And both players are playing around a bunch of other good defensive linemen right now.
But the bottom line for those two right now is that so far through 4 games, and the 4 games where neither one of these guys is like an every down starter, it's business as usual. Winovich is more productive than Gary, and you're looking at Gary saying, why are you not as productive as your
what we saw in a 3-year sample at Michigan.
There's another question in our chat box here, which I want you to answer, and I want you to answer it exactly the same way that you answered it to me yesterday.
Oh, no, I see it.
It's what happened to Tim Williams, Steve? Tim Williams, the Baltimore edge rusher, former Alabama speed rusher.
Remember.
I need your answer. I need your answer. I will find it if you don't have it.
Too many cigs.
There you go. Too many cigarettes.
I can't remember where we heard that, though, and if that was supposed to be confidential. Where did we hear that?
I don't think that was a confidential thing. Didn't that come out?
Maybe.
Either way.
There were some off-field issues with Tim.
If we can't remember it, somebody else probably can't put it together either.
If I have to add one more thing, I think one of the things we've seen now that we have 5+ years of college grading and watching guys go to the NFL, guys who dominate as pass rushers in college and are undersized.
Yeah, skinny.
If they can't win with power in college, there are some question marks there. We've seen a bunch of those guys, and Tim Williams was that guy who pretty much just won with speed, dominated with speed in college. So,
all right, I'm going to go with one more question before we wrap this baby up. Let me see which one we go for. All right, is Kirk Cousins the problem in Minnesota? In Minnesota.
I mean, right now.
Yes,
he is.
Yes, he is.
Last year, I wouldn't say he was the problem. It depends on how you look at this, right?
The stat that blew my mind, I just wrote a piece about this, right? Basically saying if Kirk Cousins is playing the way he is right now, the Vikings might as well pack up and go home. They're not winning anything this year. It blew my mind to discover that Kirk Cousins has the longest average time to throw in the NFL. That is insane.
Right.
That is a
snap to release. He's holding it the longest.
That is a stat that is usually led by a Deshaun Watson, a Russell Wilson, a Josh Allen, maybe a Jacoby Brissett.
Aaron Rodgers up there.
Right. Guys that have a reputation for lingering, trying to keep the ball too long. Like Deshaun Watson, that's his single biggest flaw. Now, we talked about how it also is a good thing at times.
Sure.
But it's a bad thing overall. It stresses people. Kirk Cousins leads the league in that right now. And you can say, yes, they've instituted more of a play-action passing game, roll-out, a Kubiak sort of style thing, and it hasn't been that much. But even if you strip out that stuff, if you get rid of the play-action, the rollouts, and all that kind of stuff, he still has one of the longest average time to throws in the NFL. That is inexcusable for a Kirk Cousins-led offense, particularly one where your offensive line sucks. The Vikings have a bad offensive line, and Kirk Cousins is somehow. So overall, there's talent on that unit, right? Dalvin Cook may be the best running back in football. You have 2 of the top 10 wide receivers in the NFL. You've got Irv Smith. You've got a lot of talent on that offense. Right. Somehow, Kirk Cousins is managing to zero in on its biggest flaw and magnify it. That's not what a quarterback should be doing.
The way you normally combat that to get rid of the ball quickly is with receivers who can win quickly.
Which they can.
Which they have, right? You mentioned Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. So I think when we look at this from a macro level, it's going to be the opposite of what we saw last year. Kirk Cousins playing above his head the first 8 games.
Right.
And then he still had to go to Detroit, and he still had to go to Chicago and, and win some big games down the stretch where things kind of reverted back. Is there a point where he got those out of the way right now, and we are going to be sitting here. The magician's going to be here in week 8, and you're going to be like, wow, Kirk Cousins is 7th in the league in passer rating. There's no way he's the problem.
Right. I honestly think there's a good chance that something like that happens, that he got all of his crappy games out of the way early, and he's going to go on a run late in the season where you're like, wow, Kirk Cousins is playing really well. This Vikings offense is cooking. What's amazing, so right now his grade is 52.7, right? It's at least 20 points lower than his baseline to that point. But what's amazing is the 4 years before that, essentially the 4 starting years of Kirk Cousins, he is one of the most inconsistent quarterbacks in the NFL. But over a season, it ends up in exactly the same area almost every time. His
right.
PFF grade over those 4 years basically sits between 70 and 80 every single season. Now, this season, it's 52.7, but all of those other seasons have stretches that look like this. So is he going to go back to being somewhere in the 70 to 80 range again, or has he literally just turned to ass in the space of an offseason?
And if he does get back to 70 to 80, he does have to go on a
good
run. Yeah,
right.
He's going to have to play pretty well. So even as poorly as he's played, he's still bucking the old system here, Sam, with an 88.7 passer rating. Now that's 24th in the NFL, or 20th or whatever when you change the filters and all that stuff. But given how poorly he's played, 88.7 doesn't look that bad. He is going to be up at 97 or 98 by the end of the year. And next time he needs that contract in a year, he's going to be like, look at my stats. I mean, you could make a Kirk Cousins argument just by using his career stats, passer rating, adjusted yards per attempt, all these different things. His raw stats end up good. But it's because he pulled out a game like last week where he's got all these bad fumbles that don't show up.
Yeah.
And he has a 91 passer rating in a game where he could not complete efficient passes against the Bears.
I heard Chris Long on a podcast talk about exactly the same thing you've always said, which is you watch Kirk Cousins try and execute this comeback, and you start asking yourself, what is he actually trying to do here? Because there's plays here where it's like, am I worried about winning this game, or am I worried about my completion percentage? And this is a former NFL defensive end trying to chase down these guys, having exactly the same thought. Let me sum it up.
And then he'll just chuck one up to get you off the scent a little bit. Let me just chuck one up into coverage, and then 17 straight checkdowns to come back after that.
Let me sum it up. The best quarterbacks in the NFL raise the game of everybody around them. They're able to mitigate the weaknesses of their offense, whether it's bad offensive line, whether it's poor receivers. They're able to paper over the cracks that are around them, right? Kirk Cousins obviously isn't one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but what's truly amazing is he does almost the exact opposite of that. He makes the weakness on your offense worse, which is probably the worst possible thing a quarterback could do. I have summed it up in the following line. And so a quarterback in need of a perfect situation in order to be at his best has somehow honed in on the weakness of the offense and set about exacerbating it. That is Kirk Cousins right now. He has identified the single biggest weakness on the Minnesota Vikings offense and is currently making it worse by holding the ball on too long.
Man.
So, yes, he's the problem.
You just quoted yourself.
I did.
You got on me when I did that, but sometimes it makes sense.
Well, I write better than you, so it's worth me doing.
Come on, man. I don't know. Let the people decide. I wrote a Carson Wentz. It wasn't my best work. I wrote a Carson Wentz piece today.
All right.
You wrote a Kirk Cousins piece today. Go check it out.
Yesterday.
Oh, it's on PFF.
I wrote about the Rams' offensive line today.
I wrote about Gardner Minshew. Did you just see the line I used for Gardner Minshew?
No.
With great mustache comes great responsibility. And Gardner's stepping up to the challenge or something like that.
If that isn't a cue to end the podcast, I don't know what is.
PFF.com. Sam and I have been writing a ton of articles. Go read them. That's our midweek podcast. That's it.
Yeah.
This is our fun one. This is great. Need more contribution here. More good questions.
Right. We'll be back tomorrow. previewing the week.
Yeah.
And the audio people will be back tomorrow.
That's right. We'll be back on podcast 1. All right, guys. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.